Okay, good afternoon. I'm Mathieu Budiarjo. This is Monday Live. This is something that we do every Monday afternoon to figure out the future for smarter buildings. It's great to have you with us today. In case you're wondering who we are, our profiles are listed on mondaylive.org. Just keep in mind that views expressed here are personal, not of any company or organization. It's very important these days. And let's make this as interactive as we can. Post your questions and comments on the Zoom chat. That always makes things much more fun and lively. And in case you want any of the information that's presented on this on the slide deck, it is also available right on the homepage of mondaylive.org. So this being January, Happy New Year to everyone. Looking forward to 2025. We're going to start the year off by spending the month of January talking about who moved my cheese. And we'll get into that in a moment. The agenda, as normal, is news and chit-chat trend, what's going on in the industry and in the world, and who moved my cheese. And what we want to focus on today is really what is our cheese? That's kind of the discussion of today. But before we get into that, I'm going to hand it over to Ken Sinclair to give us an update from the industry.
Thank you very much, Anto, and Happy New Year to everyone. Our theme for the day or the meeting is our collaboration for the communication of change. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there's a lot of change in our lives, and my head's exploding. I think a lot of people's heads are exploding. And I believe that we need to communicate that change and we need to collaborate because it's affecting us all. We're all finding pieces of new technology, whether it be AI or cloud native or combinations of that, new business models. We've kind of taken that, thrown it into the ride the roller coaster, embrace fear. I was always told as an editor, never use change and never use fear. But I think this is the time. So in that, we build a little bit on Anto's theme. I had a little bit of insight into that it was coming. So we've basically done a quick summary of where that comes from. But I'm sure Anto's going to do a better job of explaining it. We've also got, I'm going to do a little bit of catch up for you here. The look ahead to 2025 is basically the summary of the last Zoom we had in December, and it's got some good stuff in it, such as links to the summit, links to our programs at AHR, which are listed there on the left. And as you can see, we've got some more faces, and we're in the throes of finalizing exactly how those sessions are going to go. So lots of people, lots of opinions, lots of change. So the other thing that I've done is we've been offline now for over 3 weeks, and there's been a lot of stuff gone on that's been fairly significant. One is what I call the train brain, train bought a brain, and if you click on that, it takes you to our LinkedIn post. And I've shared the opinions of a lot of folks. I basically did like a summation of some of what folks were saying about that transition. I think that's a very significant transition because I think that's the first of the hardware manufacturers walking across the floor and investing and purchasing basically intellect, the kinds of stuff we're talking about at Monday Live. And making it part of their product. And in making that part of their product, they kind of move from being hardware OEM suppliers to being technology companies. And inside of that technology company growth is, I think, their natural journey to subscription, where basically comfort and energy and all of the things that we embrace will be rolled into a subscription. Sorry about that. And I think that's a big trend. I think you're going to start to see a lot of products are going to come across the floor, and we've kind of come to that realization ourselves that we're changing from whatever it is we are to just simply being technology companies. And again, back to the fear and greed, there was a post that I liked and I shared it. And it says, you know, like fear is not such a bad thing. And I think the biggest thing is we all have right now is the fear of doing nothing. And that is a real fear. Now, I don't think that's an option. And I think that's going to evolve as we talk about what is our new cheese. A few other things that got kicked around while we were away is Paul posted the research project point on advanced ASHRAE project on advanced building controls. I was amazed at the interest in that. So that's interesting that we're all growing. We're starting to get changes. Again, communication of these things and how they fit in what we're doing. The one right below that is what came from the Artificial Intelligence Investors Group, which is kind of interesting because what's housed inside of that is all the money that's being pushed towards artificial intelligence and cloud native thinking is kind of being driven by angel capital and big bucks actually. And that was another one that when I reposted it, I was amazed. I actually got over 2,000 interactions. So as we come out of our block party of the industry and we start to move into the global technology people, there's a lot of folks that are doing it. I was amazed at the amount of sensors. We actually were always in an industry where we actually created all of our own sensors, and that is not the case now. The bulk of our sensors are coming from other industries, so that's an interesting trend I see. And then one of my favorite ones was the baked blackberry pie. I loved that. I loved that it came out to a nice acronym like that. And that got me thinking about what we had started actually over 5 years ago at AHR. We had done a session where we completely filled the room. It was an unbelievable session. We had people sitting on the floor. It was like a college class. And we were talking about open systems, open hardware, and kind of starting some of the thinking that we've been putting together in the last 3 or 4 years with Monday Live. Inside of that is the fact that we're back at it with the new wave in building automation. So some of these things are going to be in the same light as that was, that we actually started people thinking about using these little microcomputers. The other thing that was embedded in there that I'm not so sure that we clearly saw 5 years ago was that all these little microcomputers basically run on Linux, and so we now have these little platforms that are going to help us evolve the edge of AI. So it's interesting that that's kind of moving in that direction as well. And I'm really pleased that we had a voice in getting that started. And of course, it points at the BlackBerry or the Raspberry Pi, but of course there's a whole host of products that are like that. What I'm now seeing is there's a whole host of new products that are more powerful. Back then, it was trying to keep it in the price range that we could afford for a VAV controller or something like that. And we were attracted to the amount of power per dollar we could buy in something like a Raspberry Pi. And I think now, because of the importance of what we're doing, we can actually afford to spend a little bit more money, but the hardware has actually come down that the price point isn't all that different, but it is totally amazing what you can buy for $300, and what its capabilities are to pull together the direction we're going. So exciting times for sure. Join us, ride the roller coaster. We believe that automated buildings is a good place to share your collaborations and also learn from other people's collaborations. Back to you, Anto.
Thank you, Ken. So yeah, change is definitely in the air. On my side of the world, I've had a different kind of change. I'm now a granddad. This is the son of Luke that you've some of you have met here on Monday Live. So please welcome him to the world. And the community link board, as we always have this up here so that you can have these links. And then the other thing that I was going to mention is just what's happening in AHR in Orlando, AHR and the ASHRAE winter meeting. Maybe probably best for me to get Rick to sort of speak to this. What's happening in Orlando?
Yeah, it's coming up. So 5 weeks from today, I hope it's 5 and not 4 weeks from today, but I think it's 5 weeks from today will be the Monday of AHR. And of course, the Sunday before that, the day before that will be the Smarter Summit 25. This will be the third year we've done that. And as you've pointed out, it's 3 to 5. I would say if people haven't gotten their hotel reservations, do that quick. Second thing is go ahead and register for the Smarter Summit. We expect that to be a good turnout, and we will be leaking details of some of the things we're going to talk about at the Smarter Summit, along with what we'll be showing on the expo floor. Hint, hint, it's not much of a secret. We're going to be talking about what C4SB is doing, becoming part of the Linux Foundation. Again, we won't have that official announcement until sometime like maybe at that Super Bowl party, but there will be much more detail about what's happening with the Linux Foundation, and we may even have an IBB that is a Raspberry Pi version of an IBB that we can show as an update at the summit. It's part of a demo of the Linux on a Raspberry Pi with the IBB capability on it. There'll also be another version of an IBB, at least there's rumor of that'll be demonstrated from a company that's represented by a CEO over there, about 5 people to my right. But I also won't pre-announce that until we have details of it, but it's going to be a really good update for us. It'll be a really big update of the things that have happened over the past couple of years, and more significantly, the things that have happened over the past couple of months. So what did I forget to talk about there? And then the different panel sessions that Ken pointed out, those are going to be some really interesting topics this year. And along the subject of moving of the cheese, this was going to be a really significant year. So we'll really encourage everybody to get their plans together for being at AHR.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Any other thoughts and anything else anybody want to bring up? Hearing nothing, so we shall continue. Shall proceed to talk about cheese. So just in case you don't know what we're talking about, we are talking about, well, we're being inspired by this book that came out in 1998 that became an instant bestseller. I would highly recommend you read it if you have not. It's a very quick read, probably read it in an hour, if not less. And it's a gem, small and valuable. That's kind of what it says here, which is really great. And it speaks to a couple of the quotes from the book. Is this, what would you do if you weren't afraid? That sort of goes to what Ken was talking about. And staying still is really a bad thing, because movement in any direction is almost good. And if you don't this is what happens. Right. So there's a lot in it. It's in a sort of the small number of pages it has, and it's really worthwhile reading. And the book really is an allegory that sort of leverages these four characters: Sniff, Scurry, Hem, and Haw. And it's all about their journey in a maze where the cheese moves, and it's really about how they behave differently because they're different characters, and the characters obviously relate to their names, and how some of these characters got on really well and found new cheese, and some of the other characters didn't find new cheese, and some eventually found new cheese, kind of a thing. So I kind of want to, I created this sort of Zoom version of that, trying to sort of draw us into the story. Because really the question that we want to be talking about here is really, what is our cheese? Obviously, cheese is a metaphor for something. So in our case, what is our cheese? So with that, I'm going to stop my share and put it out to the group. What is our cheese? Steve, I'll pick on you.
I was afraid you were going to do that. So, what is our cheese? I would say for my lifetime, it's been the cheese is how do we control, automate, if you will, a building in any respect that you want to think about it. A lot of it's obviously been related to HVAC, but in my journey, I've hit upon a lot of lighting, a lot of security related things, some fire life safety as well. And so those, those are typical topics, but they're, if you add it all up, the cheese is how to go do that. And we've been on this journey of doing it in a evolutionary technology driven manner or fashion for these 40, 50 years now. And the difference, I think, today as we sit and reflect on what Ken had to say just a few minutes ago, the rate of change, the rate of the evolution is speeding up. And so I used to think of change in 10-year blocks, if you will. I can't begin to think that way. Or if I let myself think that way, I'm going to be one of the characters who loses out finding the new cheese. Okay. So I do think we've got to recognize that, at least for the time being, that that 10 years is no more than 5, and in some cases might be 2 or 3. And that's the fundamental shift, if you will, or change in terms of who's moved my cheese. Yeah, well, the world's moving it for whatever reasons, right? But it's happening. And if we're going to succeed, then meaning we're going to capitalize on this change, we need to recognize the pace of how things have changed and adapt to that change and see the opportunities for what they are, right? Whether we're talking AI or Linux or hardware costs, it doesn't really matter, does it? It's recognizing that these conditions have evolved, and they're changing rapidly, and our best bet is not to ignore them, but to embrace them.
Yeah, it's interesting you say what we do doesn't actually matter, and you're right. From a philosophical perspective, change is change, but obviously any one individual person or company obviously has a specific type of cheese, right? So that's the thing that I think makes this whole problem complicated, because all our cheeses are kind of different. And they don't look or smell the same. But
Yeah, but I like going to the grocery store and getting to choose, between Gruyere and Brie and
Yeah.
all the different varieties of cheese. I have no problem with that, right? So,
I would define the cheese a little more abstractly as as not the end of automated buildings or technology in this space, but rather the channel to market is really the thing that I would categorize as the cheese. And that's in a very dynamic moment right now where we are watching the destruction or the diminution of the existing channels to market and new channels of market being formed really all the time in different ways as the new technologies come out, new players come out, new ways about thinking about making money. So fundamentally in the industry, that's what I'm most interested in terms of where the cheese is where did the business move to and how?
I think that's a really good comment. As the guy who's been in the industry for 50 years, I've really only existed in change. My whole journey to the industry has been change, radical change, and I've always been there. But what am I seeing different? What am I seeing different than the DDC revolution, internet, clouds, all of that? What am I seeing? It's the speed. And that when we actually find our new cheese, we may not even recognize what it looks like because it's going to have transformed. And I think that's what Jim's just talking about is our industry is still going to be here, but it's going to be greatly evolved, greatly changed. And we need to understand, we need to be part of that change. And it's just, and the speed, I cannot, what can I feed back from 50 years? I've never seen anything move, a technology, a change, a radical thinking. The internet didn't come this fast, in my mind anyway. I was, the .com, the .bomb days, they came, but that was like a 5-year period. I think this is happening in months, days. How many new versions of these things are there? It's
And
just
I think another interesting thing, Ken, is that if you look at the textbook business school ideas, people are always looking for disruptors. Who's going to come in and disrupt the business? As if a third-party company or someone from another industry is going to come in and disrupt it. And what's fascinating about where we are now is that's not really what's happening. There aren't new players marching into the industry and taking it. It's changing very rapidly organically, Ken, right?
the pieces are changing. It's like a dynamic puzzle. You go to grab a piece and the piece is no longer what it used to be. It's not ChatGPT 3, it's ChatGPT 4, or it's the new version or the new name or a program that amalgamates all of the AI programs. I mean, it's just radical stuff coming monthly, weekly kind of thing. It's just, the speed is unbelievable. It's everybody working on the project, not proprietary controls and stuff too. So it's a very interesting model for sure.
So Keith, what do you think of this? What's our cheese?
Well, I just think I'm along the same lines of the incredible adoption cycle of this new technology, i.e. AI. I was just blown away. I went to a Clippers game at the beautiful Intuit Stadium, Inglewood, California. And first of all, there were no physical tickets. You had to download a virtual ticket to your phone. But that wasn't incredible. Like, that's been going on for a long time. But when Andrea and I walked in there was no one checking at the gate. There was the AI, they had AI agents tracking us throughout the entire venue. And the gate just opened up and it said, "Hello, Keith. Hello, Andrea." And it opened up. And then we said, "Oh, that's pretty neat." And then we went into the sports shop because Andrea was kind of cold. So we wanted to buy her a sweater or something or a pullover. And we couldn't even walk into the venue until it recognized us. And then we walked in, she put the shirt on, tried it on, said, "Oh, this is great. Where do we pay?" Just walk out. It kept track, an agent kept track of what she tried on. She tried on several ones, and we just walked out and it was charged to our credit card. Like, just think of how many disruptions occurred. No more cashiers, limited security, limited people at the gates. I mean, it's just suddenly we hem and haw about this stuff and we say, "Oh, that'll never happen." And then suddenly it's here. So that just blows me away.
So how do you translate that to the sort of the broader changes that we're talking about in the industry?
Well-
And I know a lot of what you've said is about AI, but it's not just AI, it's kind of a lot of things.
It was the intelligence of that venue, of that building. That was the definition of a smart building. It was self-aware. It knew all the occupants that were in it. It protected itself against, any people that shouldn't have been in there. I mean, that was the definition of autonomous smart building.
Actually, another observation I make in your great example is you didn't get a chance to hem and haw. You were forced into this change.
Yep.
And that's the ability of this technology to actually just immediately force us into the change.
Yep.
And I don't know if if you do anything, if you're involved in medical or something like that. I remember the little lady that during COVID that was trying to get into the health clinic and didn't have a cell phone. Because what the sign on the door was, is it said basically call this number and we'll give you a number and you get your position to get in the door. It was old school. So, but she was locked out because she didn't have a cell phone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's how fast this stuff is moving, but you're talking about it. You went to this one event and this one event changed your life.
Oh yeah. I mean, Andrea, she just couldn't get with it. She's like, "Well, this is not right, and we need
Privacy.
money, and we can use." And I had to explain to her that she had to download the ticket to her cell phone. It took a facial recognition shot of her. I mean, that's how it went in there. And she's like, "What are they gonna do? Make us do this stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah, resistance is futile. You're gonna do it. You have been assimilated, and there's nothing you can do about it."
But
But
maybe
you're-
this is why the change is changing so fast, because we've never had a situation where, do you want to go to the game? If you want
Yeah,
to go,
you
to the
wanna
game,
go or not? Yeah.
yeah.
What's your other choice?
Yeah, but Keith, I think you used the word forced to adopt it, but I don't think, given the story of you and Andrea, you were not forced. That was actually a pleasurable, it may be a little spooky and weird, but it was a good experience, right?
Yes, it was, but I was forced to adopt their paradigm. Like, it was such a pain in the ass trying to get, like, it made me upload my driver's license and all this stuff. I mean, I'm like, I just want to walk up to the will call and pick up a physical ticket. No, you can't participate in this. You're going to download the Intuit app onto your phone. You're gonna take a picture. You're gonna upload your credit card. Literally, you can't even walk in that place unless you have a credit card assigned to you. So there goes theft. What are you gonna do? Andrea was like, she didn't put a credit card on her pass on her cell phone. So I had to pull my credit card out and do and swipe it, and before they would even let her into the store. Like, you couldn't even walk into the store unless there was a credit card that was going to be responsible for whatever you picked up and walked out with. I mean, it was shocking.
But I do think that helps define the speed, because we've never had a lever or a hammer like that. Do you want to do this, or do you want,
Yeah.
So how does that kind of speed, how that kind of very significant change that Keith is telling us about?
I think that leaves people giggling and laughing at how far behind we are in the building automation industry.
I wouldn't say that, Ken. I would say that is our industry. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's a little bit of my point is that the evolution of channels and what the lines are around what it is that we do, that is our industry, isn't it, Keith?
Yeah, we should be in on that stuff. I mean, the one thing that I think is kind of people in the controls industry might not be seeing, but what happens when the devices themselves get embedded smarts? So there's been this master supervisory control system on top of it. But I mean, I'd say Belimo Energy Valve, Smart Energy Valve is a great example. That thing has its own flow meter. It's got its own ultrasonic flow meter built in, delta T. It can control the coil locally. What's going to happen when the dampers and the actuators and all that stuff get smart? I mean, that would make an external BAS system kind of redundant. Well, it would make it redundant. So I think that's where we're going to get blindsided, is that the devices themselves are going to be autonomous and they're going to collaborate with each other. The chiller's going to talk to the pump. It's like it's time to turn on. I need to have some water flowing through me. Like, there's not going to be this master supervisory, master slave is the old paradigm, where the intelligence is concentrated right in the building control system, the master supervisory controller. I think that stuff is going to get distributed back out in the field. So I think that's where where the controls companies are going to get blindsided.
Which is the point that Jim was making about the distribution and the channel strategy changes because the technology changed. So as technology has evolved in the course of human events, and I haven't been on the planet all that long, but we've all seen some amount of change. But every time there's significant change in the core technology, you do get a change in how people procure that technology. And whether that technology is the difference between a horse and buggy and an automobile, but the way that you get those benefits just naturally changes. And that's part of what we're obviously advocating. And for me, cheese is because I've been a nerd all my life. Usually I've been in the role of selling the nerdy stuff, but I'm really just a nerd. I'm about processors and compilers and operating systems and stuff. That's what I really am excited about. So for me, the cheese is the fact that there's this new technology capability that is based around the capability of software more than processing, more than the chips and the processors. Now the real change has been in the software architectures. Now, to make it easier for people to understand, you can just say it's just the Raspberry Pi, which for a lot of people and Keith's talking about smarter Belimo valve openers or whatever, that seems like it's hardware, but it's really software that's changing the capability of all those devices, because the Raspberry Pi has had basically the same amount of processing capability for a long time, but it's new software architectures on that Raspberry Pi that now allow it to be put into more places.
Make sure I'm on the same train as you. You said Mark was going to try to, he's traveling. He'll call you tomorrow.
Mark wants in on the conversation. But as the technology changes and the cheese, so again, the cheese for me is just the core processor and the software that can now be run on these new architectures. And then that absolutely then changes how people procure it, because now I can go buy stuff off of Amazon or whatever. I can tinker with things. And the other thing you don't get in what Jim was talking about is the distribution model is one thing. That's where I buy stuff, but how I get support for it changes dramatically as well. So, no longer do I get free installation and free support by buying my proprietary expensive architecture. I have to go procure that separately, or I have to take it on my own. So anyway, it's a lot of change, and there's more change happening faster than there's ever been. And so it's going to be crazy times. I love it.
I'd just like to jump in at that point, because way back in the old days, what we did when DDC hit is we had this technology problem that what we were doing with DDC, the OEM people couldn't imagine. So we actually told them to supply your equipment with no controls, and we will put DDC control. We basically retrofitted brand new stuff in the field because they didn't get it. As they start to move across the floor, as we see in the train brain, that is a significant move because now they present as an IT company, not as a hardware supplier. So now Rick can deal with them and they will be best of breed, not necessarily by being the best product. They could have the best software and the best learning, the best thing that talks nicely to all the pumps, as Keith said. So it's just it's more of a living organism, that's evolving. And I think that's helping the speed. And it's going to be interesting to just see how all of the majors start to do that. The other thing we got is everything is changing. I don't know if you guys remember the old days when boilers used to heat the buildings. Now chillers heat the buildings. I mean, that's a big shift in our industry.
Yeah.
I mean, decarbonization is Brad's talk at AHR is how to use chillers and decarbonization and not break them because it's a different thing. You're running them to generate heat, not to generate cooling, and using different freons, it's a whole new thing in the electrification side of this. So yeah, there's just a lot of moving pieces.
So Steve, you've spent quite a number of your years in sort of high-level executive roles in this industry and adjacent industries. How do you think companies in this industry is going to cope with the speed that we've been talking about? It's a big question, I know, and I'm not sure anybody has the answer, but could you give us a little bit of...
So I think it's a fundamental challenge. And what I've seen, I guess what I see is the smaller firms have always traditionally viewed their edge through technological innovation. So it's very common for them to embrace new technology, look for it, staff for it, reward around it. Usually the founders have a profound vision for how that technology is going to make them successful. And so there's little resistance on their part to take risk, if you will, on new technology. Right? Whereas larger established firms are looking to preserve what they have, and they're looking, when they make technology investments, they go through a much more they go through a lot of diligence around where that money should be spent. And so that can absolutely slow things up. It can also cause them to miss opportunities altogether because they don't make the necessary bets.
They're hemming and hawing.
Right. They're hemming and hawing. Right. So they can make some substantial bets on what they think is going to work, and then all of a sudden you see 4 or 5 years later they pull the plug. It didn't work. Right. So maintaining a kind of a skunk works operation inside of a large company is can be challenging to maintain from a financial perspective, because it's not necessarily going to pay off, and why spend the money on it if it doesn't get the sign off from the management team, right? So that's what I see as the sort of the two ends of the pole. Is the small firms are going to be more nimble, more aggressive, more risk-taking, and the larger firms are going to struggle to make the necessary investments because of the bureaucratic decision-making that goes on within those organizations.
Actually, in some discussions I had with our consulting company over the weekend, it was that's happening, and how it's growing is interesting. We both talk a lot about how the construction process is broken. Absolutely, it's broken and has been broken for many years. And what's happening now is we're starting to see owners coming back, and they don't want it, they don't want the traditional consulting relationship. They want the consultant to be part of the team. And I think everybody is that. So we're starting to see all of the pieces come, and the owner just, he's frustrated. He just wants the thing to work. The software is able to show him what it is capable of. If he can find that team of people to put together that dream, then he's interested. And what's happening is we're now seeing that that's starting to change the general construction of how he would normally have just gone out to 3 consultants. He is not prepared to do that anymore because he finds that's a painful process. And that these people have to be part of the team, and they have to be able to work with the systems integrators. And what we've developed there, that subculture, is now starting to be reused to actually in new buildings and stuff with sophisticated developers and stuff. And so what I think I'm seeing is like a little building of teams. And I would go back to what you're talking about, Steve, the guys that are nimble, they basically are part of a team. And Keith does that too. He's got all these universities that he's part of their team. He's the guy. I got a guy who can make this stuff happen. That's what we're all looking for. The guy that can make this
Right.
thing happen.
Yeah,
But
thanks.
you're
I think it's going to be shocking. I mean, the shock is going to be shock and awe. I mean, Scott asked a great question. How would this pattern be applied to train BrainBox? I think I have a pretty good idea where they're going. I mean, Ken, you alluded to it at the beginning. Like this is a transformation of delivery of service. So we're working on our version 4 release. Our version 4 release is going to be direct cloud to device. So there's not even going to be an application. There's only going to be a download. Nobody on this forum had any trouble with the upgrade for Zoom. When you clicked on it, it said, "Oh, there's a new update available," and it was a browser plugin, and you downloaded. You didn't have to get your IT department involved or anything. So we've perfected a Chromium, which is the open source version of Chrome, a Chromium plugin that our gateway agent is going to be a Chromium plugin, and it's going to go, and none of the smarts is going to be local. It's all going to be in the cloud. It doesn't know anything about BACnet or anything. That's all going to be up in the cloud, and it's just going to be a relay agent that's just going to sit there and interrogate the building control system. You're talking about from clicking from start to finish, up and running within 10 minutes. And that's coming out at the end of this month. I see where this stuff is going. And I think that's where Train is going to go as well. You know, they're going to go directly cloud to their chillers, optimization.
what you're speaking about earlier, Ken, was really sort of delivery has to be collaborative, not just collaboration between vendors, but collaboration between vendors and the customer, or the customers probably, because they're
What the process ended up with them voting who was on the team. And then it even got narrower to the fact that they not only voted who was on the team, it is which person is this consultant or contractor giving me for the project. If I get Joe, it's you're on my team. If you give me Jim, it's a no deal. It cut down to that part. So basically the team, it's probably like putting together a professional team. I mean, you need the people who do the best, who can actually pull this stuff together, whether they're a systems integrator, whether they're equipment suppliers. It's a big collaborative effort. And the old school of how we do it isn't working. And we tried to do that in the old days with requests for proposal. I was really enlightened when Anto told me about the California Community College, and they went back to a request for proposal and thing, because I think that's what it really needs. And it says, who's your team? And what can your team do? Give me your proposal.
I think that's interesting, but I think there's another who moved your cheese overall, which is in many customers, there is no team anymore. The customers, especially in facility management and operations, the brain drain has been so serious recently that there aren't enough people to do anything. So people are looking for vendors and any solution they can come up with to get people to actually be able to run this stuff, whether it's remotely, whether it's from the cloud. They can't get any people. So I think that's another serious movement.
I think that's propelling the move to technology, and that's what we're saying. One of our sessions is tech and talent, and everybody's speaking to that is the fact that we're so lacking people. Anytime we can use it, so we're maybe even more liable to use this new technology because we're desperate.
Right, or you don't even view technology as something that the customer uses.
Yeah,
It's something that solves a problem for them that they are not a user of. They are a buyer of a solution.
yeah, they just want the solution. If the AI makes the solution come faster, cheaper, better, fast, then they're
Right.
happy.
Without the people that I don't have.
That's right. Yeah, don't tell me your problems, just give me your solutions.
Without the people that I don't have.
Yes.
Right.
So where does this go? Where does this go? How is this, for example, going to change the conversation in Orlando? Just sort of thinking a little bit out in terms of what we're talking about in the industry. Do we think that the industry as a whole sort of understands that this is what's going on, or everybody in shell shock kind of thing?
I'm not smart enough to even answer that question, but my guess is that 90% of the industry has no idea what we're talking about. They're putting one foot in front of the other the way they have traditionally. And this change, not an outside disruption, as I pointed out before, but this change is just happening all around them. I'm not really sure how it ends up or when it reaches a breaking point. But I do believe that it's going to reach a breaking point this time, and there will be meaningful change.
Yeah, I think that's what was behind Brian Turner's comment.
Yeah.
That many people aren't aware of the cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna bring that one up right now, too. That's a good point. A lot of people are just, just doing whatever they're doing kind of thing. They're not seeing this coming.
But at AHR, it'll be interesting because the way that the show works is that the salespeople are there at the show, and the salespeople have been told by their customers that the customer's been asking for new tech, and they've been asking for things to be more interoperable, and the salespeople have been saying, well, can't you just deal with the stuff that we've got today? Can't I just sell you more of this old stuff? But real world customers have been exposed to all sorts of new smarter tech, whether it's in their car, their house, or their washing machine, or when they go to a basketball game. People have been asking for this stuff, and these companies, as Steve described, the companies have been kind of in their own way and saying, well, I don't want to invest in Skunk Works, and I don't want to do that. I'm in denial. So was that him? Is it him, ha, and denial? Was that the characters?
Hem is the one that's in denial.
Okay, so it's him. And so at the show, there, the salespeople will be like going, yeah, I wish I had a product that did this, but because my customer's been asking for it. But if you talk to the product managers that are at the show, they'll be like, oh no, we already have the perfect product line. We don't need any of these new advancements. and if there's executives there, the executives are probably saying, well, I'm trying to figure out how to get AI into my product line, but everybody's, so I think it'll depend on, kind of where the conversation level is. And we've been saying this for a long time, is that the people who are running the company would, like what Steve was describing, would prefer for the company not to become obsolete this year on their watch.
I think
Until
that
they
overlooks
retire.
one critical element, Rick, which we've seen these companies manage to over the last 20 years, which is the hem haw and retire, right? So let's loot the thing and then jump clear of the wreckage. I
Right.
would not rule that out as the main modus operandi here.
Was that the fifth character in the book?
I guess I didn't read the book, but that's it from real life. That's what I see happening. You don't need a strategy for the future if you're not going to be around for the future. A lot of companies have been run that way for at least the past 10, 15 years.
Actually, I think you just described my life, Jim, that I should have jumped out. And
There
I'm
you
still
go.
here.
Right.
And now I feel like roadkill.
Right.
All right, so Rick, you're about to say something?
Oh, I was just thinking about the show, and it was like, and if anybody that is under 60 some years old, sorry, not this show, the AHR show, the ones that are still looking to make their career, are the ones that are more likely. And I tell these stories all the time about, I just had a conversation with my son's fiance, and she's in the business of selling service contracts for automobiles, different thing, but she understands technology like somebody you wouldn't expect to be so versed in the new ways of using technology to acquire customers. 34 years old or whatever. And that's my point, is that the younger the demographic, the more likely the person will be in tune with the fact that the cheese is changing for every industry. And so, the rest of us that are in our 60s that still have some time yet to put in the industry, teaming up with some of the younger generation is kind of what I see as the best way to find the cheese.
I think that's very wise comment. I think that is going to be the model. That has to be sort of a generational bridge as part of this.
I think we got this kind of, it's like the 5 stages of grief thing going on here, except it's different because, what was Gandhi said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. Like the amount of hate this last month of December on LinkedIn is over AI. I mean, I'm not kidding you guys. There's so much hate. I've been called a greedy, evil dictator. They've got all these people talking about communism, and I'm part of the problem, and I deserve to die. Like I'm not kidding you. I had to put like some stuff in on LinkedIn. I had to report some people. I was getting DM'd and stuff. I even kind of just backed off of the whole LinkedIn thing. But the amount of hate out there is incredible around AI. And what in particular, what we're doing in buildings. I got people out there saying that, what you're doing is not really AI, and there's no need for AI because the building control system, a PID loop is AI. I mean, just all kind of stuff. So I'm just going to kind of back up and just release my new release and see what happens. I'm not going to sit here and argue about where nobody's going to win on this keyboard warrior kind of battle thing. But I seriously see like the amount of hate and stuff. It's ridiculous. And that's through fear. That is fear of what's coming.
Anybody else see that out there?
Well, I think that's what's forcing the assembly of these teams, the success team that the owner wants. So he puts together the people who can make this happen. The technology is so exciting. There's so many opportunities. There's no use fighting the people who don't understand.
Yeah.
Let's go surround yourself with people who like what you're doing, and you'll become famous. I'll guarantee it.
So I know we got a minute left. Just an observation or maybe a conclusion I've reached is I think across the board, when we go to HR, I think you'll see really all the companies touting their embracing of cloud. Right? So they're all going to have a cloud story. But that doesn't mean they get it. Okay.
Yeah,
That's,
I was waiting
I think,
for
the
that
big
one.
difference. Okay. So when I listen, Keith, to what you're doing, my immediate reaction is you get it. In other words, you get how to leverage cloud to actually achieve the outcome that your customer wants.
Yeah.
Right. And I just think we're going to hear. So as you listen and see and hear the stories, be discerning, ask some questions, dive deeper into how and why and what they're trying to solve with cloud, not just put some words on a brochure.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think there's going to be a lot of that, and people will latch on to cloud and AI sort of the same way. Just use it to put lipstick on a pig kind of thing. The whole thing.
But Ken's right. I saw the same thing 25 years ago during the dot-com explosion, right, Ken? Over the internet. Internet's not scalable. It's not deterministic. ArcNet is better. Like I heard all this stuff 25 years ago. Same thing. Except it's going to be worse this time and better.
ArcNet might have been better, but it lost. Right.
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Yeah, that's right. But the thing for me is that the teams will be built so quick and so fast, and so the sophisticated owners will lead us. They're the ones who actually believe in this change. They will fund us. They'll put together the teams. They don't want anybody on the team that is a naysayer. They just want to go ahead and do this, and that's what I think is going to evolve. And there's various flavors of it. Do you believe in decarbonization? So if you don't believe in decarbonization, you go over there and you get your team. Your team has to be completely different, and you have to reconfigure it with people who believe that. So, and
I think Prince said it best. They were
Pardon?
asking when he first got his record contract, how did you land a record deal? He's like, I didn't. They found me.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's what's going to happen. And that's what happened in the DDC industry. All those 50 little DDC companies that, most of them perished. The ones that succeeded, they found people that believed in it. And then they found people like BACnet who pulled them all together and even made it stronger. And that'll be the same thing. People who support Linux and cloud native things that Rick is telling us about, is they're going to be preferred, and they're going to grow faster, and they're going to, but in the final analysis, it's just who's going to do what they say.
Hey, y'all.
Okay, I think this is probably a great time to wrap this call. I think this has been really interesting and engaging. So thank you, everyone. And thanks for all the comments, great comments. We'll get the video up today or tomorrow, and hope everybody has a great first full week of 2025, and we'll see you again next Monday. So with that, bye all.
All right.
Cheers.
Guys, bye.
Bye.